On the day of the bidding war, Sienna Blair, who was practically Jackson Cole's sister, said, "I've known Isabella forever and I've never once seen her embarrass herself." Just because of that, Jackson, my fiancé, got so amused that he changed his company's bid from $600 million to $6 million. Jackson told me you're practically damaged goods at this point. A clearance price is all you're worth. Your family's project is just like you, 99% off. $6 million is generous. The whole room burst into laughter. Jackson barely glanced at me. "Sienna just likes to joke, don't take it personally. We're getting married, so let's keep it in the family. You're just giving her a little laugh ahead of time." Added, "I'll change the bid back in a minute. It's not like I'd actually let your family lose money." Suddenly, none of it mattered. I looked back at him calm. "Don't bother." Then I walked straight to the man who had been listening in the corner. "I'll add another $1 million. 7 total. The project is yours, deal." Everyone in high society knew the bidding was just a formality. As the sole heir to Heartwood Capital, everyone expected me to hand the win to my fiancé as a courtesy, so when I spoke, the room went dead silent. The man in the corner barely paused. "Deal," was the first to snap back to reality. "Isabella, have you lost your mind? Do you hear yourself? That land in Westbrook is worth over $600 million. You're selling it for $7 million. So he did know. He knew the land was worth far more than $600 million. My father had won the government bid 5 years ago. Since then, the market value had risen over 30%. He was only offering it at the original price to Jackson as a favor because of our engagement. Jackson didn't even bother to thank us. Instead, he stood by while the whole city watched him humiliate my family. Thinking about it now, any last warmth I had for him vanished. I laughed coldly. "You wanted to make your precious Sienna happy, right? Well, she got her wish. I just sold a massive piece of land for next to nothing." She looks thrilled. "So why are you upset?" Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Sienna shaking with laughter. "I only wanted to embarrass her a little. I didn't expect her to blow up her whole life." Jackson's face went dark. "Isabella, stop being so sarcastic. I told you I was going to change the bid back. You know how Sienna is. She's just blunt." She didn't mean anything by it. He was trying to hold back his anger. "Look, it was a joke. Sienna and I were just having fun. Can you stop making a scene?" "A scene," I frowned. "I am the sole heir of Heartwood Capital. What makes you think a public promise from me is a joke?" Jackson's brows locked together. "You're serious?" Before I could answer, the murmurs spread through the crowd. Jackson really messed up this time. He was so cocky, and now his own girlfriend just shot him down. He doesn't get that land. How's he going to explain this to his family? Jackson clenched his fists, his face burning red. Then he laughed at me. "Cole Enterprises won't collapse without that land. We'll just stay where we are, but you need this money to keep your company afloat. You'd burn your own family's future just to save face. You're going to bankrupt the Heartwoods over a tantrum." Everyone finally understood. After a moment of shock, they turned on me. "Wait, the Heartwoods are in trouble." If that's true, Isabella is being reckless just to protect her pride. What a way to repay her parents. If they can't pay for their next project, they'll be bankrupt in weeks. Her parents must be wishing they had a second child right about now. People whispered, mocked, and watched with glee. The man in the corner looked at the crowd, then directly at me. "You can still back out." I steadied myself and shook my head. Jackson stared in disbelief, his voice full of anger. "You'd really do this?" Making a point is one thing, but this kind of stupidity has real consequences. I looked at him coldly and said nothing. "Fine," he said, laughing without humor. "Let's see you explain this one." The moment I opened the door, Margaret Cole's sharp voice drifted in from the living room. "The Heartwoods raised their daughter to be a liar. She promised the land to us at the original price. She said the bidding was just a formality. And then, nothing." Cole joined in with a cold snort. "Our flagship hotel project was counting on that land to expand. Now it's gone. Are the Heartwoods going to cover our losses?" Every word was an accusation, spoken as if from a throne. And my parents, knowing they had no ground to stand on, kept apologizing and trying to calm them down. But everyone forgot one thing. Everything the Heartwoods were supposed to give the Coles was based on one condition: our marriage. So what if that condition no longer existed? I kept my expression calm and walked into the living room. Jackson sat on the couch with Sienna, pressed close together. The moment he saw me, his anger flared again. He pulled Sienna into his arms and smirked. "Mr. Heartwood, Mrs. Heartwood, maybe instead of focusing on business, you should teach your daughter some basic manners. A woman who throws a tantrum over nothing isn't someone I'd want to marry." Didn't show an ounce of respect for my parents. My mother's cheeks flushed, but she still tried to smooth things over. "Jackson, that's a hurtful thing to say. After all, I cut her off. Don't worry, Jackson, you don't want to marry me, and I don't want to marry you. Since neither of us is interested, let's call off the engagement. Everyone froze. Shock was plain on every face. They had expected me to apologize, to beg Jackson to take me back. The thought that I might refuse him never crossed their minds. Even my mother was afraid I might regret it. Are you sure? She whispered. I shook my head. I've thought it through. The couch, Sienna smiled sweetly, looking almost delicate for once, but Jackson's face turned a deep, ugly black. He pushed Sienna away. Heartwood, you've got some nerve. I hope you still have this much spirit when you come crawling back in a few days. I knew why he said that. On paper, he was sure my family would run out of money and need him, and personally, he was certain I couldn't let go of him. We had grown up together. I had chased him for years. I didn't answer. I just gestured toward the door. Jackson stared at me for a long moment, then stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Richard and Margaret were furious at being shown out like that. The Hartwoods have been falling apart for years, so marrying our son was already a step up for you. If you're too stupid to see that, we'll find someone who isn't. Took Sienna's hand as she said it. I didn't react. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me hurt. But as they left, I watched Sienna's back for a long time. What kind of person was she? Loud, confident, reckless. Everything I wasn't. And to Jackson, that was intoxicating. So throughout our history together, through the engagement that was meant to merge two business empires, Sienna was always there. Jackson's friends stopped saying Jackson and Isabella and started saying Jackson and Sienna. Even introduced her to his parents as his goddaughter and let her move into the Cole mansion. I put up with all of it. I didn't have Jackson's love, but I still wanted the security the marriage would bring my family. But letting Sienna humiliate my family in public was the last straw. That moment felt like a slap to the face, a hard one, and I finally woke up. Why was I depending on a man who only cared about his so-called sister? It was time to rely on myself. Only after the Coles were completely gone did my father finally collapse onto the couch. He let out a long, tired sigh. Isabella, I'm sorry. I couldn't protect you from this. But when you have to go back to him to save the company, he won't let you forget today. Mother wiped her eyes. She won't go back. She's suffered enough because of him. If she really doesn't want to marry him, we won't force her, even if it means losing everything. Eyes stung, but I held it together. Mom, Dad, the company won't fall, and I won't let them humiliate us again. Parents looked at me surprised. A wild hope flickered across their faces. Are you saying? I shook my head. I didn't explain. My uncle worked for a federal agency. I couldn't say which. A while ago, when I visited him, I saw the man from the bidding there. The people my uncle associated with were either government officials or high-level technical experts. I wasn't supposed to ask questions. But my uncle had mentioned casually that if that man ever needed anything from me at a company event, I should cooperate. I nodded, not fully understanding. Then I got some inside information, and I started to guess who the man really was, when he showed up at the bidding. I knew it was part of a federal operation, so I pretended to act out of spite and handed over the land, knowing it would cut off my own company's cash flow. The loss was huge. I could only hope I hadn't made a terrible mistake. The Hartwoods didn't have much time. The land needed to be transferred quickly. I ran upstairs, gathered all the documents, land transfer agreements, project handover forms, and checked everything twice. Then I texted the man. Where are you? I'll come to you. He sent an address without hesitation. When I got to the private lounge and pushed open the door, I saw Sienna straddling Jackson, kissing him. The wet sounds were loud even over the cheering of their friends. My grip on my bag tightened. Before I could process why Jackson's group was in this room, Sienna turned her head. She saw me and let out an annoyed huff. If you want to watch, just watch. No need to sneak around. But really, I should thank you for raising him so well. The moment I'm in the mood, he's ready to help. She winked at Jackson. I almost laughed. Can't afford a hotel room. You have to make out in a borrowed lounge. As Jackson's ex-fiancé, I could have loaned you the money. Wiped his mouth with his thumb and leaned back with a smirk. You don't have to be so bitter. You're just jealous of what Sienna and I have. But here's the thing. You embarrass me in public. If you want my help, you need to show some real sincerity. He paused. Make me happy, and maybe I'll think about taking you back and saving your family. I stared at him. For a second, I didn't understand, then it hit me. He thought I was here to beg. Before I could speak, Sienna raised an eyebrow and gave Jackson a smug look. See, my method works. You can't coddle women. You have to put them in their place. And now look, she came crawling back like a trained dog. I barely held back the urge to slap her. Jackson's friends started up again. Sienna's the best. Jackson's got so much game, he's got Isabella eating out of his hand. These two belong together. Why does Jackson even need a real girlfriend? You don't get it. Other women are just part of their game. They're just the warm-up act, not the main event. Blood boiled. You don't actually think Jackson Cole is some kind of prize, do you? You really believe I came all the way here for him? I pointed straight at Jackson. You'd better keep your dogs on a short leash. Because if they ever cross me again, I'll make sure they regret it. Of them jumped up, his voice shooting up an octave. We're giving you the time of day. Show some respect. You're about to be bankrupt. Without Jackson, you're nothing. Quit acting like you're better than us. A big guy from the group shoved me hard. My lower back slammed into the edge of a glass coffee table. I gasped in pain. Jackson's face went cold. Enough! For a second, I thought Jackson was finally stepping in to stop them. But his anger wasn't aimed at his friends, it was aimed at me. What's wrong with what they said? He asked. You still don't know your place. Would it kill you to just ask me for help? If you learned anything from Sienna, none of my friends would have a problem with you. I stopped trying to get up. I was speechless. Learn what from Sienna? How to manipulate people? How to be the other woman? How had I never noticed how crazy Jackson was? Suddenly, his expression changed. He smiled. Looks like you came prepared. I was confused until he reached down and picked up a stack of papers from beside my foot. The cover read Land Transfer Agreement. She brought the contract to beg you to take her back, and she's still pretending she doesn't want you, Sienna said, her eyes cold as she snatched the papers. She flipped through them. That's it. $7 million for that random guy. And you're offering Jackson $7 million too. You're saying your boyfriend of years is worth the same as a stranger. They had already decided the contract was for them. I decided to set the record straight. You misunderstood. This contract isn't for Jackson, smiled knowingly. Then why bring it to my lounge? Stop pretending. But I'm not that easy to win back. Sienna's right. I shouldn't be worth the same as some stranger. Here's what I'll do. You gave him $7 million. You give me $100 million, then I'll forgive you. The wedding is back on. I stared at him in disbelief. Look at her. She's so happy Jackson is willing to forgive her, she can't even speak. $100 million, she'd do it for free. With Isabella spending money like this, the Hartwoods will belong to Jackson in no time. Get a pen. Let's get this signed. Just as Jackson was about to sign, I snapped back to reality and knocked the pen out of his hand. Do you not understand English? This contract is not for you, and you don't get to take it. Jackson's face darkened. You're really protecting him, stirred the pot. Oh, Jackson, she's obviously been cheating on you for a while. No way she'd throw away this much money on a stranger just to prove a point. I glared at her. He's not a stranger. Was a federal inspector. He was never a stranger. You admit it, Sienna said. You're a liar and a cheat, and now you're embarrassing Jackson in front of everyone. As his friend, it's my job to teach you some manners. She raised her hand to slap me, but before her hand could fall, my own hand shot out and an even sharper slap cracked through the air. Sienna grabbed her cheek. You hit me. Hitting you, I didn't get to finish. Another slap landed on my face. This one was from Jackson. My cheek swelled instantly. I looked up at him, furious and hurt. Jackson's eyes were ice. You disrespected me. You cost my family the land. Now you lay a hand on Sienna. Fine. You want to protect him so badly. You want him to get the land for cheap. Dream on. Heart dropped. No, but it was too late. With one hard pull, Jackson tore the contract straight down the middle. Then he kept going, ripping it again and again like he was taking out all his frustration, until pieces of paper fluttered through the air and drifted down around us. And then I laughed. Did Jackson really have a few screws loose, destroying a federal contract? What kind of nerve did it take to pull a stunt like that? At that moment, the man walked in. Federal agents followed close behind, immediately securing the room. The man looked at the shredded paper on the floor. His face went pale with anger. Who did this? Jackson lifted his chin defiant. I did. You got a problem with that. The man stared at him for a long moment. His face was full of fury. Without a word, he pulled out his badge and flipped it open for everyone to see. The room went silent. Jackson stared at the federal inspector's credentials. His mouth hung open. My heart pounded. I had been right to gamble. The Westbrook land is a federally designated recovery zone. The moment Ms. Hartwood signed the agreement, the land was officially under federal jurisdiction. Malicious destruction of a federal contract is a criminal offense. Have you considered the consequences? The inspector's voice was calm but cold. His presence was overwhelming. Jackson finally found his voice. He was still holding pieces of the shredded contract. How does that destroy a federal project? It's just a contract. You can print another one. Inspector frowned. The Westbrook land contains an undeveloped oil field thousands of feet below the surface. Destroying the contract raises questions. Are you trying to hide something? Sabotage national energy assets? Do you still think this is just a piece of paper? Sienna laughed out loud. In the tense room, the sound was jarring. She wrapped her arm around Jackson's. Jackson, can't you see? Isabella set this up with this guy. If there was really an oil field under that land, someone would have found it years ago. Why is she only bringing it up now? Obviously, Isabella set this whole thing up just to get back at you and make you look like a fool. The realization dawned on Jackson's face. He jabbed a finger at me and started yelling. Isabella, we've known each other for years. This is ridiculous. You don't care about your own company's money anymore. You teamed up with a stranger to hurt me. Watching him play the victim, I almost laughed. He believed Sienna after just a few words. He didn't stop to think about who would dare fake a federal badge. Did he really think we would commit a crime just to mess with him? When I didn't respond, Jackson's anger flared hotter. When your company goes under, don't come crawling to me. The inspector gave a signal, and the agents moved in, taking both Jackson and Sienna by the arms. Jackson struggled. Let her go. She didn't do anything wrong. Sienna Blair deliberately encouraged the destruction of a federal contract and attempted to obstruct justice, the inspector said. She can explain herself at the federal detention center. Inspector waved his hand. They were both taken away. Jackson's friends finally read the room. They scattered in every direction, running off as fast as they could. Soon, the room was empty. I signed the final contract with the inspector and handed over the land. Considering the Hartwoods' situation, he requested additional compensation from his superiors. The Hartwood Capital Group became a federally backed company. No more cash flow problems. I breathed a sigh of relief and headed to the office to tell my parents. But when I got there, the building was surrounded by Cole family security. The lobby had been cleared. 3 rows of guards stood inside. This was not a social visit. The moment Richard and Margaret Cole saw me, their anger exploded. Isabella Hartwood, where's our son? You couldn't have him, so you got him arrested. What kind of sick person are you? I was confused. He was taken by federal agents. That has nothing to do with me. His face flushed with rage. She grabbed my collar. Liar. Sienna texted us before they took her. You made up some story to have him arrested for revenge. The federal detention center. My son is a law-abiding citizen. You're disgusting. Parents looked like they were about to cry. Isabella isn't like that. There must be a misunderstanding. Let us explain, my mother pleaded, her voice trembling. If it really was our daughter's doing, you can come after her then. There's no harm in waiting. Richard shouted. While you're explaining, my son is in a cell. He's the only heir to the Cole family. If anything happens to him, I'll destroy you. Was impatient. Enough talking. Isabella, tell us where they are. Where's my son and my future daughter-in-law? Future daughter-in-law. She said it so easily. She had always wanted Sienna for Jackson. I remembered how she used to act as if I should feel lucky to marry her son. It made me sick. My face hardened. This has nothing to do with me. If you want your son, don't make a scene at my company. Richard and Margaret's faces went black. You won't talk, Margaret said. My heart raced. What are you doing? The guards already knew what to do. They raised their weapons and started smashing the office. Stop, I yelled. This is illegal. No one listened. Richard and Margaret had come ready for this. In that moment, I hated Sienna. If she hadn't deliberately spread lies in front of Richard and Margaret Cole, none of this would have ever happened. Just as I was frantic with worry, the company's security team rushed in. They were overpowered in minutes. Teams of guards spread through every floor. Glass shattered. Furniture fell. Papers flew. Margaret shouted, Isabella, tell us where our son is. Do you want to destroy your own company? I just want my son and daughter-in-law back safe and sound. Why do you have to be so vengeful? My parents were in tears. Isabella, we know you're not that kind of girl, but if you know anything, just tell them. The company can't just disappear like this. They were destroying the building, breaking computers, ruining essential data. Before, this would have been a disaster. But now, they were destroying a federally backed company. They were the ones who would pay. Mom, Dad, don't worry. They'll regret this. Margaret laughed. A company that would have gone bankrupt without the Coles. You're threatening me. I'm just speeding things up. You did this to yourself. I didn't answer. I sat down and patted my parents' hands. Ahead, I said. Smash everything. Richard and Margaret looked confused. What are you up to now? Margaret's phone rang. She answered, then turned to Richard with a huge smile. Our son is back. Sienna too. They're fine. Let's go. Leaving, she looked at me. Consider this a warning. Next time there won't be anything left. I rubbed my wrists and watched them leave. My brow furrowed. Jackson and Sienna had destroyed a federal contract. There was no way they should have been released so quickly. A bad feeling settled in my stomach. I pushed it aside and focused on the problem in front of me. When the Cole SUVs were out of sight, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "I need to report a crime," I said. "The head of Cole Enterprises just led an attack on a federally backed company. Illegal entry, threats, destruction of property." I laid out every detail. The operator paused for half a second. "I'm dispatching officers." I hung up and reached for my phone again to call the federal inspector. Now that Heartwood Capital was a federally backed company, the Coles weren't going to walk away from this unscathed. Before I could dial, his name appeared on my screen. "MS, Heartwood," he said. "I have an update. Jackson Cole and Sienna Blair have been released." I gripped the phone. "I know. Coles just demanded I return their son. That's not all." The inspector paused. "They claimed in interrogation that they were manipulated. They said they had no knowledge of the oil field and that tearing up the contract was a momentary lapse of judgment." "Manipulated by who?" "They said by you." I almost laughed from sheer frustration. So that was it. No wonder they got released so quickly. They had thrown all the blame onto me. I manipulated them into destroying a contract I signed with the federal government. "Does that make sense to anyone?" The inspector's voice turned grave. "Their lawyers helped them shape their story. Cole's legal team moved fast. They're trying to turn this into a business dispute instead of a federal crime. Enterprises has deep connections in the city. They're fighting back, and right now the situation isn't good for you." I closed my eyes. I could see Sienna's smug face. She knew exactly how to twist the truth. She must have realized how much trouble they were in and decided to make me the scapegoat. I took a deep breath and pushed that headache aside for the moment. The immediate problem was that my company couldn't operate right now. "Inspector, I'll handle that," I said, my voice calm and steady. "Right now my company is destroyed. Richard Cole personally led a team inside. He ordered his guards to destroy everything on every floor. I have video, I have recordings, I have witnesses." Was a long pause. "When did this happen?" he finally asked. "Just now. I called 911 right after they left." The inspector's voice turned cold. "That's incredibly reckless. Send me your address. I'm coming with my team." I hung up, sent my location, and turned to my parents. They were shaking. "It's okay," I said. "The government will handle this." Mother wiped her eyes. "Isabella, we're just a private company. Why would the government care? We're not just a private company anymore." I knelt down and held her cold hands. "Things have changed." Father stood up suddenly and looked out the window. "Isabella, someone important just arrived." I followed his gaze. Blue and red lights flooded the street outside the company, not one car, but a full line of them. But more striking than the police cars were the black federal SUVs behind them, unmarked but radiating an authority that made the crowd step back. The federal inspector stepped out of the first car. Behind him, uniformed technical staff carried forensic evidence collection gear. "MS, Heartwood." He walked into the lobby and looked around at the destruction, his expression darkening. "This is the warning you mentioned." Margaret Cole's words, not mine. Bent down and picked up a shattered hard drive casing. It still had a label that read core data. "These storage devices," he said. "Do you have backups?" "Cloud backups and off-site local copies," I answered. They didn't know that. The corner of his mouth twitched like he wanted to smile but held it back. "Good," stood up and gave orders to his team. "Full evidence collection, every floor, every corner, every damaged item, model numbers, purchase dates, and you," turned to me. "You said you called 911. "Yes." "Who took the call?" I gave him the operator's ID number and name. The inspector nodded. He pulled out his phone and made one call, 3 sentences. "This is Federal Inspector Marcus Dunn. The 911 call from Heartwood Capital Group is being transferred to me. Your officers don't need to enter, just secure the perimeter." He hung up and turned to my parents. His voice was softer. "Mr. and Mrs. Heartwood, you've been through a lot. My team will take you to a quiet room. We may need statements from you later." My parents were stunned. They had no idea when their small company had gotten federal protection. I patted their shoulders. "Go, I'll handle this." The technical team got to work. Cameras flashed. I followed the inspector to a quieter stairwell. "Cole Enterprises," he said. "What's your priority here?" "Justice, by the law." "By the law?" He raised an eyebrow. "You know the Coles have enough money and connections to make this go away with just a fine. Of property, even with major damage, carries 3 to 7 years. But with good lawyers, they'd probably get probation." I looked out the window. I thought about all the times the Coles had pushed my family around. And if that wasn't enough, Jackson had almost bankrupted us because of Sienna. What if we add more charges? What do you mean? I pulled a file from my bag. Cole Enterprises land transaction records for the last 5 years. I had someone look into them. I was going to use this as leverage if I had to negotiate with Jackson. But now, I opened to a specific page. Last year, Cole won a bid for a city landscaping project, $80 million. Actual construction cost was less than $20 million. The rest was split and sent to offshore accounts in 3 transfers. Where did you get this? The inspector asked, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Jackson's computer, I said. We were together for 7 years. His password was my birthday. The last time I was at his apartment before we broke up, I copied his hard drive. The inspector looked at me for a long time. His eyes held surprise and something that might have been respect. Hartwood, he said, you were prepared for this. Wasn't a question. I just learned, I said quietly, not to put all my eggs in one basket and to keep my guard up even with people I thought I knew. He closed the file and thought for a moment. This is enough to destroy the Cole family. But you need to understand, if you give this to me, there's no going back. Coles have been in this city for 30 years. They have deep roots. They will fight back. Offering a choice, I said. What kind of choice? Use this to remove them completely, clear my name, and let Hartwood Capital Group start over clean with nothing hanging over us. Stairwell was silent for a long time. Finally, the inspector held out his hand. Give me the file. I'll have an answer for you within 24 hours. I shook his hand. His grip was dry and strong. 24 hours later, almost to the minute, I was at the office reviewing what data we had saved when the inspector's message came through. The heads of Cole Enterprises were in federal custody. All assets frozen. Individual investigations ongoing. And my name had been cleared of any involvement with the destroyed contract. I stared at my phone screen. Isabella. My mother walked in with a cup of coffee. She looked at my face. Is something wrong? I handed her the phone, her hand shook. Coffee spilled, but she didn't notice. She read the message 3 times. This is real, Cole is finished. The investigation is still ongoing. I took the cup from her and set it down on the table. But the main people are in custody. Frozen assets mean they can't even pay for lawyers. Phone buzzed, an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Isabella. Jackson's voice was rough, unrecognizable. You're cruel. Do you want... My mother was arrested, my father too. He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. You planned this, didn't you, from the day we broke up? No, before that, from the day you copied my hard drive, you were just waiting for this. I interrupted. Are you calling to make me feel sorry for you, or to yell at me? Silence. Sienna is gone, he finally said. She disappeared as soon as they let her out of the detention center. I wasn't surprised. Sienna was the kind of person who attached herself to power and ran when things fell apart. She left me a letter, Jackson said, his voice dropping. She said she was sorry. She said those things to me on purpose, just to make me hate you. She never thought it would destroy my family. And, he sounded wounded. Isabella, my parents are being investigated because of you. I'm going to prison. My whole family is falling apart. And all you have to say is, and. Jackson. I stood up and walked to the window. When you tore up that contract, did you think about the fact that I would have had to pay millions in penalties? When you showed off Sienna in front of me, did you think about our 7 years together? When your parents smashed my office and threatened my parents, did you think about what you were doing? No, you didn't. You only think about yourself. You're still only thinking about yourself. You didn't call to apologize. You called to blame me. Not angry at me. You're angry at yourself, at your own choices, at your own stupidity. You could have warned me, he said, his voice breaking. You knew Sienna was trouble. You knew the government was taking back that land. You knew everything, and you just stood there watching me walk right into the trap. I did warn you, I said calmly. Right before you tore up the contract. I heard him take a shaky breath. Jackson, I've known you for years. I know you better than you know yourself. You decide on something, nothing changes your mind. The only thing I could do was make sure I didn't go down with you. Are you happy now? He asked. I said honestly. I wish none of this had happened. I wish the Hartwoods and the Coles had never been engaged. He hung up. I looked at my phone. My hands were covered in sweat. Another message from the inspector. Sienna Blair maliciously manipulated Jackson Cole into destroying a federal project. Then she attempted to flee the country. Our team picked her up at the border. She confessed to everything. There's no way she's avoiding several years of prison time. I stared at the message for a long time. Outside my window, the city lights were bright. I thought about growing up with Jackson. The engagement, all of it, We had no idea back then where the road would take us. My phone buzzed again, a text from my mother. Your father and I are downstairs. Let's go home. Dinner is ready. I picked up my bag and took one last look at the destroyed office. Tomorrow, renovations would begin. In 1 month, Heartwood Capital Group would move into a new building provided by the government. A true federally backed enterprise, and coal enterprises would be erased from the business world. I pressed the elevator button. I thought about what the inspector had said. Someone from Washington wants to meet with you. Not a city official, not a state official. Someone from Washington. The elevator doors opened. I stepped inside and looked at my reflection in the dark glass. Isabella Heartwood, 28 years old, only child of the Heartwood family. She had just ended a 7-year relationship and watched the destruction of the family that almost destroyed hers. My reflection looked calm. No excitement, no thrill of revenge, just deep exhaustion. And a strange, quiet uncertainty. The elevator reached the first floor. The doors opened. My parents stood in the middle of the lobby. Behind them was Inspector Dunn. And next to him, a man I had never met in person but had seen on the news countless times. Isabella Heartwood, the man said, reaching out his hand. His smile was warm. I'm Gregory Shaw. I direct economic strategy at the White House. I'd like to discuss the oil fields development and the future of the Heartwood Capital Group. I didn't move. Inspector Dunn cleared his throat. Ms. Heartwood, Director Shaw flew in from Washington. He's been waiting for 2 hours. I took his hand. And I realized this wasn't the end. This was a completely new beginning. The end. This is Listening Novel. We appreciate you spending your time with us. If you enjoyed today's story, please like and subscribe for more stories, and stay tuned for what's next.